My mom remarked to me as she went out onto the porch, lugging her luggage behind her, that you are running behind schedule. I saw the clock that was displayed on my dashboard. The time was 6:02 in the morning. I managed to muster a smile and said, "Mom, I am 2 minutes late." While I was getting out of the car to assist with the baggage, I noticed that my sister Lauren was coming out of the house with her own suitcase in tow. I was surprised to see her. I am unable to smile. "How are things going?" When I asked, I made an effort to maintain a steady tone. In spite of the circumstances, my mother turned to face me with a look that was far too upbeat. "Oh, Violet, we went ahead and made the decision that Lauren should replace you. Since she has been under a lot of stress recently, she is in desperate need of this trip." My chest became more taut. Instead of using me, I've been making preparations for this for years, Mom. Everything was paid for by me. With a dismissive sweep of her hand, she gave the impression that I had simply brought up something insignificant. However, despite the fact that we are thankful, love, you are always working so hard. At a later time, you can go on another excursion. As of right moment, Lauren requires this. Even for a moment, Lauren did not have the decency to appear guilty. Just then, she gave a sly grin while shifting her weight onto one hip. It was with a tone that was dripping with phony gratitude that she said, "Thank you for understanding, sister." I was unable to take my eyes off of the two of them as my heart raced in my chest. A few moments later, my father moved out of the room, steering clear of eye contact as he gave me his suitcase. My voice was shaking as I uttered the words, "This is unbelievable." Our trip was intended to be something that I would share with you, and this was supposed to be it. My mother exclaimed with a grin, "Well, it is still the case." Rather than that, just with Lauren. "Violet, you shouldn't make a big deal out of this. I think your sister might really use a break. I'd like to introduce myself as Violet, and for the past 2 years I've been working extra hours and saving every additional penny in order to provide my parents with a vacation that they will never forget. From flights to opulent hotels to guided tours, I meticulously prepared every aspect of the trip, even down to the final dinner reservation. When I was standing there in the driveway of my parents' house, watching my sister climb into the back seat of my car, I had an epiphany about something that I had been trying to escape for that many years. No matter how much effort I put in, it was all for naught. Lauren would always be the one to take precedence in their views. When I thought of the angry response that was lying on the tip of my tongue, I clenched my jaw and bit it back. Instead, I gritted my teeth and smiled and unlocked the trunk of the car. To which I responded with a flat tone, "Let's get going then." It would be okay if they chose to put her ahead of me. Both of them may accompany her, but I wasn't going to allow them to take pleasure in it. The only thing that could be heard throughout the suffocatingly quiet journey to the airport was Lauren's never-ending babbling. "Did you happen to catch that TikTok video about Paris, Mom? Oh my goodness, I am looking forward to going shopping there. Are you certain that we will be able to manage that? Or do you believe that the excursions would consume the entire day?" With a firmer hold on the steering wheel, I focused my attention on the road ahead of me, restraining myself from making any kind of communication. My mother let out a gentle giggle. "Certainly we will have time for this. Once we arrive, we will figure out what the problem is." One of my cheeks was bitten on the inside. It didn't appear that they even noticed that I wasn't a member of that we anymore when we arrived at the location. There was a moment when my father cleared his throat. "Violet, we are grateful to you for driving us. Obviously, this is something that is not typical." A quick check in the rearview mirror revealed him to me. What's new? I find it to be an intriguing way of putting it. Parent. He did not give a result. He only shuffled uneasily in his seat, most likely wishing that he hadn't done anything at all when he spoke. While seated in the rear seat, Lauren leaned forward and spoke in a harsh manner. "Are you sure you're not angry? I mean, this is a really significant deal for you to walk away from me. In my own right, I would never have been able to buy this. My mouth was clenched, and I faked a grin, but it was forced. Lauren, of course you are. Have fun on your journey. My patience was on the verge of breaking by the time we arrived at the section of the airport where passengers are dropped off. An embrace from my mother came to me as I assisted them in unloading their luggage. Thank you very much for your comprehension, my darling. For both Lauren and for us, this is really significant. I firmly nodded my head. Without a doubt, Mom. As Lauren rolled her bag in the direction of the entrance, she wore a beaming smile. To Violet, thank you. Yes, you are the finest. I stood there, watching them leave the terminal, my chest tightening with fury and pain as I watched them leave. The journey back to the house was a haze. The exchange was played over and over again in my head, with each statement having a more profound impact than the one before it. Lauren is very appreciative of this. Are you sure you're not angry? I'm constantly impressed by how hard you work. After I had parked my automobile in my driveway, I sat in the vehicle for a few minutes, holding the steering wheel tightly till my knuckles turned the color of white. Then, without giving it a second thought, I walked inside the house, took out my laptop, and entered into each and every travel account that I had used to book the trip. Reservations at the hotel? It has been canceled. Excursions? Not refunded. Upgrades to our airline? No way. As I continued to stare at the accumulation of confirmation emails in my inbox, I began to feel the tightness in my chest begin to become less noticeable. Is it true that they wanted to take Lauren rather than me? That's fine. On my dime, however, they would not be staying in 5-star hotels or taking special excursions of nearby attractions. After I had finished using my laptop, I felt a sensation of contentment rise up inside of me. If they wanted to, they could explain themselves to the people at the front desk in Paris. My time as their doormat had come to an end. The calls began as soon as their flight touched down on the ground. I was in the process of unpacking my bag, which I had prepared with great care for a vacation that was no longer mine, when I heard my phone buzzing incessantly. During the time that I was hanging up my dresses and putting my shoes back on the shelf, I was aware of the irony that was occurring. The buzzing continued, and the room was filled with the unrelenting vibration that it produced. As I picked up the phone and took a quick look at the screen, I let out a sigh. The name of my mother appeared on the screen, and it was accompanied by a number of missed calls and SMS. As I read through the texts, I unlocked the phone and removed the lock. What exactly is going on, Violet? We are unable to check in at the hotel. There is no reservation in existence. Call me as soon as possible. Violet, this is in no way humorous. Now is the time to fix this. A chuckle broke out of my mouth before I could stop it. To fix this? In light of what they had done, did they truly believe that I would come to the rescue and save the day? Another ringing sound came from the phone, and this time it was Lauren calling. I allowed it to ring for a while, and at that point, she left a voicemail. The tone of her voice was filled with a sense of entitlement as she yelled at Violet, "This is so petty! Because you are here, we are unable to leave. You need to resolve the issue by calling the hotel. Right now." My eyes rolled, and I deleted the voicemail without listening to the rest of what was being said. Over the course of many years, I had become their fixer, the person who worked to rectify every error and make up for every shortcoming. Not any longer. In the end, I made the decision to answer, even if it was just to put an end to the constant stream of calls. When I picked up the phone, the sound of my mother's voice was like a tsunami of rage washing over me. "Do you know what? You done, Violet? It has been reported by the hotel that the reservation was canceled, and there are no more tours available for booking." I waited for her to finish her diatribe before responding in a composed manner and canceling them. After a prolonged period of astonished silence, she finally spoke with a hiss. "Why would you do that?" I responded with a tone that was tinged with cynicism. "Oh, I don't know. Possibly due to the fact that you chose to bring Lauren along on my trip. I even drove you to the airport. which is a blessing in disguise. She snapped. We thought you'd understand about this. Do you comprehend what? With my voice rising, I inquired. It didn't matter if Lauren had been saving and planned for years because she needed a break, did it? Did you not find any value in the effort that I put in? Let me tell you something, Mom. I don't understand, and I don't mind trying to. Immediately after hanging up, I turned off my phone and threw it onto the couch. I did this before she could answer. The silence that followed was exhilarating, and I had the sensation that I could breathe normally once more. It would be ideal if they gave Lauren the highest priority. They might be able to find out how to get through the rest of the trip without me. One day was all that was lost in stillness. My phone was once again vibrating with calls and messages by the time I woke up the following morning. I initially chose to disregard them. However, by the time evening rolled around, my curiosity had gotten the better of me, and I found myself cleaning the house and catching up on work. As soon as I opened my phone, I braced myself for the outpouring of text messages. My mother has told me, Violet, that you have gone too far. Both your sister and your father are in tears, and your father is irate. No matter which of the hotels you booked, we are unable to check in. Lauren is telling you that you are behaving like a child. It is not clear to me why you are making such a huge deal out of this. Fix it as soon as possible. I finally got a message from my father that we need to talk. This is not acceptable. I shook my head and put the phone down on the table. Over the course of many years, I had been the one to make things right, to ensure that everyone was content and comfortable. Given that I had taken a step back, they were at a loss for how to deal with the situation. At the same time that I sat down at the kitchen table and poured myself a cup of tea, I let the fury to stew. How dare they expect me to clean up the disaster that they have created? They had the audacity to act as if I was the one who was in the wrong. When the subsequent call arrived a few minutes later, I picked up the phone this time. Violet, my mother yelled out before I could even finish my sentence. It's no longer humorous to say this. We have become stranded. Are you even remotely aware of how embarrassing the situation is? I sipped my drink slowly and took a sip. What's the matter? Would you consider this to be embarrassing? Imagine you have been saving for years and arranging every detail of the trip you paid for, only to find out that you are not even going to be a part of it. She shouted at him, Stop being so dramatic. Because Lauren required this more than you did, I told her in a stern voice that she is now able to sort it out. Mom, you have already made your choice. Is it true that you wanted to take Lauren rather than me? Of course, but you shouldn't count on me to pay for her vacation. According to her, we are a family. We don't treat each other in this manner. A sour laugh came out of my mouth. It's funny because I was just thinking the exact same thing. The wailing voice of Lauren could be heard in the background, pleading with her mother to simply hang up on her. It's impossible to deal with her. That was certainly the last straw. With a cold tone, I wished you a pleasant journey. Wait, you can't, because it's not your trip. You can't do that. It belonged to me. And now it belongs to nobody. I will miss you. Prior to her being able to react, I hung up the phone and then switched it off once more. Through the remainder of the evening, I experienced a peculiar combination of rage and relief. At the same time that I was relieved that I had finally stood up for myself, I was angry that they had put me in this situation. If they so desired, they could refer to me as acting dramatic. I was not going to give them the opportunity to take advantage of me for the very first time. In my life, the subsequent several days could not have been more peaceful. Due to the fact that I had turned off my phone, I was finally able to relax and think clearly, free from the constant stream of accusations and guilt trips. I sat on my back porch and sipped coffee while I savored the peace and quiet that I had been searching for such a long time. I spent my afternoons working and catching up on some of the smaller projects that I had been putting off to the last minute. When I wasn't burdened down by their never-ending expectations, there were several things that brought to my attention how capable I was. On the third day, however, my curiosity ended up getting the better of me. I noticed that there were more than a dozen voicemails waiting for me when I turned my phone back on. My mother was the one who initially sent me a couple, and with each one, I became more and more obsessed with her. "Violet, you are obligated to give me a call back instantly. This has reached an unacceptable level. Wow, I can't believe you're going to do that. You have made us feel ashamed. All of us are your parents. This is not how you could possibly treat us." After that, Lauren's texts arrived, each one replete with the same arrogant tone that she had always employed. "Even for you, this is such a little matter. Everything is being destroyed by you. Let's get things fixed, Violet." And finally, the voice of my father, which was softer, but not any less pointed. "This is a mystery to me, Violet. I have no idea what has transpired. To resolve this matter, please give us a call back." The final voicemail, which was a lengthy one from my mother, caused me to pause before I listened to it. This time, her voice was more subdued, and it was laced with a sense of tiredness and frustration. Violet started off by saying that we had arrived back at the airport. "My goal is that you are content with yourself because the trip has been destroyed. In addition to your father and I, your sister is in utter disbelief, and the word disappointed does not even begin to describe how we feel. If you are ready to discuss, please give us a call." Rather than responding to the voicemails, I deleted them. In all honesty, I wasn't prepared to talk, and I wasn't even sure if I would ever be ready to do so. It wasn't just a single instance of error. It was the culmination of years of them putting Lauren first and expecting me to accept it with a smile at the end of the day. In the course of the hours that passed, I found myself thinking about all of the instances in which I had been ignored or disregarded. The plans for each and every holiday that were determined by Lauren's whims. My achievements were never taken into consideration at any of the family get-togethers that I attended. The tipping point had been reached during this trip, but the fissures had been developing for years prior to that. Grace made an unannounced visit to the house that evening, carrying 2 cups of coffee and displaying an unmistakable expression of curiosity and interest. By the time she finished laying the coffee on the table, she continued, "I heard about what happened. I got a call from your mother yesterday." Without a doubt, she had. In the past, when my mother sought to coerce me into complying with her demands, she was always quite successful at collecting allies. "Also," I inquired, "are you taking a sip?" A mischievous grin began to spread across Grace's face as she shrugged her shoulders. I informed her that you, most likely, were very busy, and that you would get back to her as soon as you arrived. While shaking my head, I laughed again. "Yes, you are the finest." In contrast, she stated, "No, you are the best," with an abruptly serious tone. "Because you have at long last taken a stand for yourself. Violet, I am aware of how challenging that is. You must not allow them to bring you back down." After she had left, her words continued to linger in my mind. He was correct, Grace. Over the course of a considerable amount of time, I had spent a lot of effort trying to please people who never seemed to care about my efforts. In order to put an end to that cycle once and for all, it was time to. When the weekend arrived, I sensed a peculiar sense of clarity that I had not experienced before. The anger was still present, and it was bubbling slightly below the surface. In addition to that, I experienced something that I hadn't felt in years. Liberation. Freedom from their never-ending expectations of you. Emancipation from the role of being the family's fixer. Freedom to finally live my life according to my own standards. However, as was to be expected, the silence did not continue. When I finally received a call, it was later in the afternoon on a Sunday, and I decided to answer it. On this occasion, it was my father. "Violet," he began, his voice heavy with weariness. "Your mom wanted me to call. She thinks you'll listen to me." "Go on," I responded, leaning back in my chair. He let out a sigh. Look, this has all gotten out of hand. Your mom's upset, Lauren's furious, and, well, it's just a mess. But you're better than this. I stiffened, his words igniting a fresh wave of anger. Better than what, Dad? Standing up for myself? Refusing to let you walk all over me again? That's not what I meant, he said quickly. It's just, you've always been the reasonable one. The one who keeps everything together. This isn't like you. The sound of my laughter was brief and acrid. You're right. It's not like me. Because I'm not bending over backward to clean up your mess. He paused, and for a moment I thought he might finally see my side of things. But then he said, You're punishing the whole family over one decision. Is that really fair? Fair? I repeated, my voice rising. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you and Mom decided I wasn't important enough to be part of the trip I planned? Was it fair when you replaced me with Lauren like I didn't matter? That's not what we were trying to do, he said, his tone defensive now. We just thought Lauren needed it more. Of course you did, I snapped. You always think she needs more attention, more support, more of everything. And I'm always the one expected to sacrifice for her. Not anymore. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, he said, I don't know what you want me to say. I don't need you to say anything, I replied, my voice steady. I just need you to understand that I'm done being the afterthought. From now on, I come first. Violet. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call and set the phone down, my hands trembling. For the rest of the day, I let myself feel everything. Anger, sadness, relief. It wasn't easy, but it felt like the start of something new. I wasn't the family's fixer anymore, and I wasn't going to be. They could figure out how to clean up their own messes. When my parents and Lauren finally returned, I was waiting for them at their house. I'd parked in their driveway, sipping coffee, and felt fairly calm as I saw their taxi pull up. As they went out, dragging their baggage behind them, their looks were a mix of tiredness and frustration. Lauren was the first to speak. Well, I hope you're happy, Violet. I raised an eyebrow, keeping sat on the porch swing. Happy about what? Our trip was a fiasco, my mom snapped, sweeping her hand as if to wipe the whole thing away. We spent the entire week staying in dirty accommodations and eating bad cuisine because we couldn't afford anything better. And don't get me started. On the tours, Lauren chipped in, crossing her arms. Oh wait, there weren't any. Do you know how embarrassing it was to show up and be told there was no reservation? I took another sip of coffee, letting their complaints wash over me. Sounds rough, I said finally, my voice calm. Do you remember that you wanted to take Lauren with you? I have no doubt that you all had a wonderful time being together. The tone of my mother's voice rose as she responded. That is not the point. You were aware that we would not be able to afford all of the things that you had planned. You have made it impossible for us to succeed. After rising to my feet, I placed my mug on the small table that was adjacent to me. I'm sorry, Mom, but I didn't do anything to manipulate you. The three of us are going on a trip that I planned. I had been putting money up for a really special item for many years. On the spur of the moment, you made the decision to exclude me from the conversation. Eventually, my father spoke up, his voice becoming more subdued but not any less accusatory. On the other hand, Violet, you did not have to cancel everything. That was extreme. Was it? I asked, folding my arms. Why should I have paid for a trip I wasn't even invited to? If Lauren needed it so much, you should have organized it yourselves. You are lucky that I didn't cancel the return flight. Lauren rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. It's only money, Violet. And you're so entitled. I shot back, my patience finally snapping. Do you have any clue how much work and sacrifice went into preparing that trip? Or do you just assume things magically appear for you because someone else takes care of it? They stood there, stunned into silence for a moment. I've spent years being the responsible one, I continued, my voice steady but firm. The one who fixes things, plans things, makes sure everything runs smoothly. And you've spent just as long taking it all for granted. That's not fair, my mom started, but I held up a hand to stop her. No, Mom. What's not fair is how you treated me, as is customary. You had Lauren in mind rather than me. I made the decision to stop acting as your doormat. You didn't want me to accompany you on the trip, did you? That's fine. However, as long as I am not present, you will not be able to reap the rewards of my labor. As I turned to leave, I reached forward and grabbed my bag from the porch swing. I am relieved to hear that you have returned without incident. However, you should not anticipate that things will return to the way they were before I had enough. Their voices were a mixture of wrath and shame as they called after me as I walked to my car. I could hear them yelling after me. On the other hand, I did not turn around. While I was driving home from my parents' place, I experienced an unusually calm feeling. Every visit had left me feeling emotionally depleted for years, but this time I felt lighter than I had in the past. I'd finally said everything I'd been holding in, and for once I wasn't worried about their reaction. When I got back to my house, I made a cup of tea and sat on the couch, replaying the confrontation in my head. They'd been so sure I'd fold, that I'd give in like always. But watching their stunned faces as I walked away was a reminder of how much I'd changed. They could be angry, hurt, or embarrassed. It didn't matter anymore. I was done living my life to meet their expectations. The next day I got a call from Grace. "How'd it go?" she asked, not bothering with pleasantries. I laughed, leaning back against the kitchen counter. "Exactly like you'd imagine. They're furious," Lauren's pouting, "and Mom is probably trying to figure out how to guilt me back into line." Grace let out a snort. "Let her try. You've got a backbone now, and I'm here to make sure it stays in place." I couldn't help but smile, appreciative of her unflinching support. "Many thanks, Grace. I am serious about it. From the beginning to the end, you have been my rock." "At any time," she said, her tone becoming more gentle. "So, now that you are no longer playing the role of family fixer, what are your plans for the future?" Since we had that confrontation, that question had been going through my head numerous times. What was the next step? I had spent a significant amount of time and effort over the course of many years, trying to win the approval of my family and achieve their satisfaction. As soon as I was freed from that burden, I was confronted with an overwhelming number of possibilities that seemed to go on forever. I have to admit that I do not know yet, but I have the impression that I get to make the decision. Not them, and nothing else at all. It's just me. When Grace said that, I could hear the smile in her voice. She said that it sounded like the beginning of something incredible. Over the next few weeks, I started making small changes that felt big in their own way. I redecorated my living room, swapping out the hand-me-down furniture from my parents for pieces that felt uniquely mine. I spent weekends exploring local cafes and parks, things I'd always meant to do but never made time for. And I started journaling, writing down my thoughts and dreams without filtering them through the lens of what anyone else might think. Each small step felt like reclaiming a part of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost. One evening, I sat down with my laptop and opened the spreadsheet I'd used to plan the trip. The canceled reservations stared back at me, and I didn't feel a pang of regret. Instead, I felt a surge of determination. That money had been meant for a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I wasn't going to let it go to waste. Closing the spreadsheet, I opened a new browser tab and typed, "A few weeks after my parents' return, I booked a solo trip to Italy." It wasn't the same itinerary I'd planned for them, and it wasn't about proving a point anymore. This was for me, a chance to celebrate my independence and finally put myself first. The moment I landed in Rome, I felt a surge of excitement and nervousness. I'd never traveled alone before, but as I stepped out of the airport and into the bustling city, I knew I'd made the right decision. I spent my days wandering cobblestone streets, marveling at ancient ruins, and indulging in meals at charming little cafes. There was no schedule, no one else to consider. Just me, and the freedom to do exactly what I wanted. One afternoon, while sitting on the Spanish steps with a gelato in hand, I pulled out the journal I'd brought with me. For years, I'd written about what I wanted to achieve, but those dreams were always wrapped up in making someone else happy. Now, as I wrote, the focus shifted. Learn a new language. Start a small business. Travel to at least 5 more countries. The list grew. Each goal a reflection of the life I wanted to create, not the one I'd been expected to live. On my last night in Florence, I had dinner at a small family-run restaurant overlooking the Arno River. As I watched the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a deep sense of peace. This trip had been more than just a vacation. It was a turning point. I'd spent so much of my life trying to earn my family's approval, but here, thousands of miles away, I realized something important. I didn't need it. I was enough, just as I was. When I returned home, my parents tried to reach out again, this time with softer tones and carefully worded messages. "Hope you had a nice trip." One text from my mom read, "Maybe we can all talk soon." I stared at the message for a moment before setting my phone down. I wasn't ready to reply, and that was okay. This time, it would be on my terms. As I unpacked my suitcase and placed souvenirs on my shelves, I felt a sense of pride. A week after returning from my trip, I received a call from my mom. This time I answered. "Hi, Violet," she began, her tone unusually soft. "How was your trip?" "It was amazing," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "That's good to hear," she said, pausing as if searching for the right words. "We've been thinking a lot about what happened. Maybe we handled things poorly." The admission surprised me, but I wasn't ready to let her off the hook just yet. "Poorly? You replaced me on a trip I planned and paid for without even asking." "Poorly is an understatement." "I know," she said quietly. "Your dad and we didn't realize how much it would hurt you." "And Lauren?" I asked. "Does she feel bad too, or is she still blaming me for ruining her vacation?" "She's upset," my mom admitted. "But I think she knows she could have handled things better." I sighed, leaning against the counter. "Mom, this wasn't just about the trip. It's about years of putting her first and expecting me to pick up the slack. I'm not doing it anymore." "I understand," she said after a moment. "We're going to try to do better. We don't want to lose you." Her words tugged at something deep inside me, but I'd learned enough not to let guilt dictate my choices. "I'm glad to hear that," I said. "But it's going to take more than words to fix this. I need to see real effort, not just apologies." "You will," she promised. "We'll give you the space you need, but I hope you'll let us back in someday." After the call, I felt a mix of emotions. Relief that they were finally acknowledging their behavior and skepticism about whether they'd actually change. But as I sat down with my journal that evening, I realized something important. Whether or not they changed wasn't my responsibility. Over the following months, I kept my boundaries firm. I responded to their calls and texts when I felt like it, but I didn't go out of my way to fix things or smooth over conflicts. Instead, I focused on building the life I wanted. I signed up for a photography class, something I'd always dreamed of doing but never had the time or energy for. I joined a local hiking group, and even started planning my next solo trip. Each step I took felt like reclaiming another part of myself. One day, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I realized how far I'd come. I wasn't the person who bent over backward for people who didn't appreciate me. I was someone who valued herself, who set boundaries, and who wasn't afraid to stand up for what she deserved. I felt truly free.